So next is actually environmental movement. But before we discuss about environmental movement, there are two topics which is there in your last chapter of your paper 2, that is crisis of development. So crisis of development, this is also connected to environment. Okay, and then you also have one more topic, that is displacement. That is also related to environment. So like in case of women movement, we have taken up the context, right? We have talked about patriarchy, which is there from a different chapter, and then violence against women, that is also from different chapter, and then we have discussed under women movement. Here also under environment movement, we are discussing about two other topics which is there in some other part of your syllabus, like last chapter, crisis of development and displacement. So we are going to cover these two topics also. You can read and you will understand everything, but still we will just discuss it fast, and then we can cover the environmental movement. Okay, crisis of development means the issues associated with development. Okay, so crisis of development refers to the paradoxical situation which question the prevailing notion of development vis-a-vis emerging concern. See, we need development, at the same time there are some issues like migration, like displacement, especially when it comes to multi-purpose projects. Okay, so how can you resettle them? What is the compensation that you will provide? Can you provide economic security, emotional security? Okay, so social security. Economically you can settle them. Okay, you can give them house and everything, but can you give them that social security or psychological security, etc.? That is the main question here we are going to address in sociology. In this context, it refers to a certain set of problems which are considered as offshoots of the prevailing notions of development. These problems pose challenges before the developmental disparities and often creates a crisis situation in society. In this regard, the environmental and ecological degradation has been linked beyond doubt to the modern notion of development. So when there is development, this is something which is inevitable. So that is the context in which we talk about sustainable development. That is a different concept. Okay, the environmental question has to be understood within the overall debate of sustainability. So sustainable development. Apart from these, other problems like terrorism, disparity, emerging diseases, etc. has also nowadays understood as offshoots of prevailing developmental paradigms. The present notion of development is based on the mass production. So this is what is our idea of development. Mainly it is trickle down approach. Mass production of goods and services within the overall framework of industrialism and post-industrialism. The model aims at improving the quality of life of people by making available the basic minimum needs to all, like education, drinking water, sanitation, affordable shelter, etc. This notion promotes mass consumption and thereby a continuous increase in the production of goods and services. This model of development have been incorporated in various societies by using different ideologies which influence its structure and organization. Here ideology means it can be socialist or it can be capitalist or it can be mixed economy. The Western model of capitalism and socialism and quite mixed model can be seen in terms of such ideological specifications. This model requires an ever-increasing need for the production of goods and services. Moreover, the consumption of need could never be quantified. This further requires an extensive use of land, air and water in the form of harnessing raw materials, energy generation, developing infrastructure, establishing industry, cultivable land, increasing cultivable land. So all these are leading to ecological degradation. Because this, you are cutting down the forest and you are making it cultivable land. The overall use of these elements has resulted in variety of ecological problems. So the main two issues are issues of sustainability, whether it is sustainable or not. This is not sociologically very important. This we have to discuss under economy. In fact, I have uploaded a video yesterday only related to sustainable development. You can watch that video. That is the economic side. What is more important for us is displacement of population as part of development. And this is your another topic. Okay, so for this particular topic also we are developing a context from another topic. So we are continuing the discussion. Displacement means what? Directly or indirectly, you are shifting the population. That is what displacement. The various strategies of development has resulted in displacement of population in two forms. either directly or indirectly. Directly means eviction of population from land used for the particular developmental project. Like if you are building a road or dam or any developmental project, you will be evicting the people. There has been huge displacement due to multi-purpose projects, industrial projects, and more recently due to SCZs. But in terms of volume, displacement due to MPP is more important. A maximum number of people are displaced basically due to multi-purpose projects. Okay. Indirectly, when we talk about indirectly in terms of migration of people due to uneven developmental program. See, uneven developmental program means, if you remember when we discussed about green revolution, I've told you it is not in all regions, right? It is in specific regions. So what will happen? Migration from non-green revolution to green revolution. So mainly the rural urban migration due to lack of employment opportunities in the rural area. Similarly, from non-green revolution to green revolution area. The main basis for differentiating these two types can be voluntary and involuntary displacement. Okay, so which is voluntary here? This is voluntary, this is involuntary mainly. Okay, even this here also there can be involuntary because of some factors, maybe poverty, etc. Because of that you are compelled to migrate, that is there. But between direct and indirect, the main differentiating factor is actually the voluntary and involuntary. Here involuntary, you will be evicted by the state because of this developmental project. Now here you are migrating in search of some better opportunity, employment opportunity. So this is voluntary. But still, because of poverty, because of relative deprivation, you have no other choice, you have to migrate. In India, studies on displacement have concentrated on understanding the nature and consequences of displacement caused by involuntary shifting of population due to eviction. So mainly we are focused on involuntary. Displacement of population is mainly due to either the submergence of land or acquiring land for other land use purposes like building, infrastructure, road, colonies, etc. The problem of displacement consists of two interrelated issues. Firstly, with respect to problem in the process of displacement. The process of displacement, there are some problems. Secondly, the consequences of displaced population. So everything is given in bullet point, you need to develop this in paragraph. So what is the problem in displacement? Calculation of the population. Displaced population, compensation for the land, problem in the fixation of compensation, the time given for the eviction, nature and quality of the land on which population is rehabilitated. See, this rehabilitation, physical rehabilitation you can do. What about psychological rehabilitation? That we will discuss under consequences. That is also a problem. Women issues rights. You can also talk about old, problems of old. Then, what are the consequences? Loss of identity, because you are shifting from here to the other region, so that lead to loss of identity. Wastage of resources, breakage of family and kinship, non-adjustment to new ecology, dispute with the local population, hardships faced by women, acute deprivation faced by the poor, wastage of agricultural land, conversion of population among agriculture to non-agriculture. Okay, environmental movement, this is very easy only. Environmental movements have emerged from the environmental consciousness generated in Europe as an aftermath of Industrial Revolution and urbanization. During the 19th century, the philosophy or ideology aiming at protecting or conserving the environment came to be known as environmentalism. This environmental movement is a broad term which is generally used to describe and understand the collective struggle concerned with the environmental and ecological issues within the overall debate of development. According to Gadgil and Guha, environmental movement is an organized activity, social activity consciously directed towards promoting sustainable use of natural resources, halting an environmental degradation, and bringing about environmental restoration. So this definition has to be there in your answer. It is an organized social activity for promoting sustainable use, halting environmental degradation, bringing about environmental restoration. So these are three components. In India, although environmental consciousness is very old, but the modern environmental movement emerged during 1970s, especially after 1972. I hope you know about 1972, what was the importance that you have studied under ecology, environment. What is that? What is in 1972?
Project Tiger. United Nations Environment Program.
Yeah. Gadgil and Guha, in their book Fish and Land, wrote examples from Kautilya's Arthashastra, which mention presence of laws for the protection of forest. So even in Arthashastra also there were mentions, there were ideas about various laws for protection of forest. Apart from this, worshipping of trees, rivers, animals, etc. have been an integral part of Indian culture. So culturally we are very much oriented towards protection of environment. Now again, immediately after independence, environmental movement got suppressed beneath other political pressure which assumes priority. Like we had various other issues to solve, like land reforms, etc. Right? So environmental movement is not that important. During 70s, two factors led to the emergence of environmental movement. Like this, with the increase in population, the growing environmental needs started showing adverse impact on environment in the form of large-scale deforestation, depleting water resources and land resources due to green revolution, urbanization, industrial development, etc. At the same time, growing need for energy and water led to establishment of multi-purpose projects which had adverse consequences on surrounding ecology. And similarly, during 70s, there was a tremendous increase in global environmental consciousness. At the global level also, like Stockholm Convention, etc., right? UN Conference on Human Environment held in Stockholm generated consciousness for sustainable development and suggested the states throughout the world to legislate on environmental protection. For the first time, people's group were invited and involved in the environmental protection, like NGOs. And after this only, in our fundamental duty, one clause was added. In directive principle also one clause was added. Can you recollect that? Okay, let's not get into that now. But you need to have an idea that something was added in directive principle, something was added in fundamental duty. You should be knowing that it is a GS question, from polity direct question. Environment also, that question can be asked. Broadly, two types of environmental movement had been witnessed in India. Based on purely conserving and protecting environment, that is one thing. So that is not much important in India, commonly known as pure environmental movement. Otherwise, environmental movement linked with other issues. So this is more prominent in India. This type is considered to be the chief characteristic of environmental movement in India. Not the pure environmental movement, because we had many other issues to be dealt with. Okay. Pure environmental movement, the movement address issues like air, land and water pollution and have considerable presence in urban areas. These are popular movements coordinated by NGOs, okay, and other people group like schools, colleges, etc. These movements are considered to be having an elitist orientation with involvement of middle class intelligentsia. Some of the examples include air pollution movement, energy conservation movement, etc. Now this is more important when we discuss about, here we will discuss about Chipko movement, anti-dam movement, fisherman movement, etc. So these are environmental movements throughout the country which link the issues of environment with other issues. For example, when we talk about Chipko movement, there are some other issues has to be taken care. Women issue was also associated. So Chipko movement is not only environmental movement. We have discussed the same when we discussed about women movement also. Environmental women movement, right? So these movements generally address the issue of deprivation within the overall purview of environmental debate. Environmental consciousness is linked with the consequences which have great concern for the poor and deprived section. The leadership to these movements gradually provided the local population with some involvement of NGO also. Some of the examples include Chipko movement, okay, tribal forest right movement, Pani Panchayat in Maharashtra, anti-dam movement, fisherman movement, etc. These movements have generally followed three types of strategies. So generally three types of strategy. One strategy is related to Gandhian strategy, okay, then Marxian strategy, reconstructionist strategy. So Gandhian, I hope all of you know, there is no need to discuss here, which emphasized on restraint over the use and ensure justice to poor. So what is the Gandhian idea about, so what is Gandhian environmental ethics? There is a concept of environmental ethics also in your paper 4. What is that Gandhian idea when it comes to environment? You know that nature has everything for the
fulfill need but
not the greed. Okay, so that is Gandhian idea. There is environmental ethics is also very important in your ethics paper. So So secondly, Marxian strategy stresses on unjust social order as to conserve the protect environment, okay, all this poverty, deprivation, etc. So for example, tribal forest right movement often turn violent or militant, and the Naxalite movement, all these are related to Marxian strategy. Reconstructionist is somewhat better. So Reconstructionist movement, this propose employing an alternate technology which is appropriate in the given context. For example, Narmada Bachao Andolan, they argued for small dams instead of large dams. Large dam lead to large scale displacement and it will affect the whole population, but make small dams so that development also will be met. At the same time, the people concerned will also be met. Environmental problem can also be solved. Movement for promotion of non-conventional sources of energy, etc. Okay, environmental movement in general have used different methods like pressurizing government, appealing, mobilizing, etc., hugging the trees in case of Chipko movement, international propaganda, etc. What are the consequences? Environmental movement in India have tried to develop consciousness between the developmental needs and environmental protection. So this is the most important. There is a consciousness between development and both has to be required. That is what sustainable development. Okay, so achieving whatever is required in this generation without compromising the needs of the future generation. The resulting environmental consciousness in the government policies as well as among people is an essential achievement of such movements. These movements have been successful in popularizing and devising new strategies which are more sustainable. For example, rainwater harvesting. Okay, these movements have also led to passing various laws, and at the same time various policies and programs were launched. The local movements have been highly successful in achieving their goals like Save Chilka campaign, etc. So this is a very simple topic. Again, you need to add the current examples. Every social movement you have to add the current example, whether it is women movement, farmers movement, or any movement for that matter.